Every year, on the date of the accident, it runs again as a warning to others, plunging into the gap, shrieking like a lost soul. Percy, what are you talking about? The ghost train. Drivers saw it last night. Where? Asked Thomas and Toby. He didn't say. Oh, it makes my wheels wobble to think of it. Puh, said Thomas. You're just a silly little engine. I'm not scared. Thomas didn't believe in your ghost, said Percy next morning. His driver laughed. Neither do I. It was only a pretend ghost story. Percy was disappointed. That evening, he came back from the harbor. Percy knew where he was, even in the dark. Crow's Farm Crossing. We shan't be long now. He liked running at night. The rails hummed and the signal light shone green. But a broken cartload of lime lay ahead. Sam the farmer had just gone for help. Percy broke the cart to smithereens. Lime flew everywhere. He puffed quickly to the nearest signal box. Percy's driver explained what had happened. "I'll see to it," said the signalman. "But you'd better clean Percy, or people will think he's a ghost." Percy chuckled. "Do let's pretend I'm a ghost and scare Thomas. That'll teach him to say I'm a silly little engine." Toby promised to help. Thomas was being oiled up for his evening train. "Percy's had an accident," cried Toby. "Poor engine," said Thomas. "Botheration! That means I'll be late." "They've cleared the line for you, but there's something worse." "Out with it, Toby. I can't wait all evening." "I've just seen something," said Toby. It looked like Percy's ghost. It said it was coming here to warn us." "Puh, who cares? Don't be frightened, Toby. I'll take care of you." Wailed Percy. No, not by the smoke on my chimney, chim. I'll chuff and I'll puff and I'll break your door in. "Oh dear," exclaimed Thomas. "It's getting late. Oh, I'd no idea. Oh, I must find Annie and Clarabelle." It was morning when Thomas returned. "Where have you been?" asked Toby. Well," said Thomas, "I knew you'd be sad about Percy, and I didn't like to intrude. I slept in the freight shed and..." "Oh, sorry, can't stop. Gotta see a coach about a train." Percy was none the worse for his adventure and was still enjoying himself enormously. He had heard everything. Well, what do you know about that?" "Anyone would think," chuckled Toby, "that our Thomas had just seen a ghost." In the summer, the work crews cut the long grass along the tracks, raking it into heaps to dry in the sun. At this time of year, Percy stops where they have been cutting. The men load up his empty wagons and he pulls them to the station. Toby then takes them to the hills for the farmers to feed their stock. Percy gave a ghostly whistle. "Don't be frightened, Thomas," he laughed. "It's only me." "Your ugly phiz is enough to frighten anyone," said Thomas. "You're like..." "Ugly indeed. I'm green caterpillar with red stripes," continued Thomas firmly. "You crawl like one, too." "I don't." "Who's been late every afternoon this week?" "It's the hay." "I can't help that," said Thomas. "Time's time, and Sir Topham Hatt relies on me to keep it. I can't if you crawl in the hay till all hours." Green caterpillar indeed, fumed Percy, as he set off to collect some hay to take to the harbor. Everyone says I'm handsome, or at least nearly everyone. Anyway, my curves are better than Thomas's corners. Thomas says I'm always late, he grumbled. I'm never late, or at least only a few minutes. What's that to Thomas? He can always catch up time further on. All the same, he and his driver decided to start home early. Then came trouble. A crate of treacle was upset all over Percy. Percy was cross. He was still sticky when he puffed away. The wind was blowing fiercely. "Look at that!" exclaimed the driver. The wind caught the piled hay, tossing it up and over the track. The line climbed here. "Take a run at it, Percy," his driver advised. Percy gathered speed, but the hay made the rails slippery, and his wheels wouldn't grip. Time after time, he stalled with spinning wheels and had to wait till the line ahead was cleared before he could start again. Everyone was waiting. Thomas seethed impatiently. 10 minutes late. I warned him. Passengers'll complain. And Sir Topham Hatt. Then they all saw Percy. They laughed and shouted. "Sorry I'm late," Percy panted. "Look what's crawled out of the hay," teased Thomas. "What's wrong?" asked Percy. "Talk about hairy caterpillars," puffed Thomas. "It's worth being late to have seen you." When Percy got home, his driver showed him what he looked like in a mirror. "Bust my buffers. No wonder they all laughed. I'm just like a woolly bear. Please clean me before Toby comes." But it was no good. Thomas told Toby all about it. Instead of talking about sensible things like playing ghosts, Thomas and Toby made jokes about woolly bear caterpillars and other creatures which crawl about in hay. They laughed a lot, but Percy thought they were really being very silly indeed. If someday you should see Thomas the Tank Engine puffing happily along the line, he may be on his way to a village nestled deep in the heart of the island of Sodor. One November morning, Thomas whistled to all his friends. "It's nearly Thanksgiving, and I'll bring you lots of letters and parcels." But then an early snowstorm came. The island was covered with thick snow. The engines found work difficult. Some had to help clear snow from the track, and workmen hacked away at the frozen banks of ice. Thomas and Percy were collecting important mail for Thanksgiving. "Driver says there's lots of mail for the village," said Thomas. "I'll need an extra car for it all." Percy was feeling left out. "It's not fair. You're not leaving any mail for me." But Percy's chance had come. "There's been a change of plan," said Thomas's driver. "Sir Topham Hatt needs us at the big station. Percy, you are to take Thomas's train to the village." Percy was delighted. Thomas was sad. "I won't be able to say Happy Thanksgiving to all my friends." "Don't worry," said Percy kindly. "I'll do it for you." "It's not the same," sighed Thomas. Percy was making good time on his way to the village when suddenly, "What's that?" called his driver. There ahead was a fogman by the line. He was holding a red light. "The village is cut off by the snow," he shouted. "We need snowplows, workmen, and a helicopter. Leave your cars in the sidings and go back quickly." Percy was soon steaming to Harold's airfield. "Beep, beep," whistled Percy. "Wake up, lazy wings. The mountain villagers need your help. They're stranded." "Whiz-o," replied Harold. "I like an emergency to keep me warm." And he buzzed away. "Now," sighed Percy, "what's next?" Suddenly there was Thomas with Terence the tractor and a works train. "Come on, Percy," whistled Thomas. "Follow me." The two engines battled their way through the snow. At last they reached the village. Harold was already there, busily dropping food for Thanksgiving dinner to the people below. Terence quickly got to work. "Lovely stuff," he said as he pushed the snow aside. "Well done, Percy! Well done, Thomas!" cheered the villagers. "Percy, I've just remembered, your mail train is still back at the siding, isn't it?" Percy hurried back to fetch it. Just then, Toby arrived with Henrietta. "We've brought lots of hot drinks and food for the villagers," he whistled. That night, all the engines had gone back to the sheds, except Toby. The villagers had made a plan to thank the engines. They loaded paint pots and parcels into Henrietta, and then they set off through the moonlit countryside. All the engines were fast asleep in the sheds as Toby ran silently into the yard. He had no idea what the villagers were going to do, but he knew it was going to be a big surprise. When the engines woke the next morning, they could not believe their eyes. The sheds had been repainted and decorated. The engines whistled in delight, and everyone agreed that it was a really happy Thanksgiving. One day, Edward was talking to Trevor when Douglas steamed by. He was pulling a train of heavy coal cars. "Come on, Edward. Stop gossiping in the sun when there's work to be done." Later, Edward spoke to Douglas. "Trevor and I are old friends, and you and he have a lot in common, too." "We do?" quizzed Douglas. "And what would that be?" "Scrap," said Edward quietly. Douglas gasped. "Don't mention that word. It makes me wheels wobble." "It does the same to Trevor," replied Edward. "He was being sent to the scrapyard, but the vicar and I saved him, and now he's really useful again. Even so, Sir Topham Hatt certainly does need another steam engine here." "Aye, he does, and quickly." That night, Douglas was still working. He had taken the midnight goods train to a station at a faraway part of the island where only the diesels work. He was just shunting, ready for his return journey, when... "That sounds like a steam engine," he thought. The hiss came again. "Who's there?" asked Douglas. A whisper came. "Are you Sir Topham Hatt's engine?" "Aye, and proud of it." "Well, I'm Oliver, and I'm with my brake van towed. We've run out of coal and have no more steam." "But what are you doing?" "Escaping." "From what?" "Scrap. Douglas shivered. Then he remembered Edward's story about saving Trevor.
I'll be glad to help you. It'll have to look, though, as if you're ready for scrap and I'm taking you away.
Their drivers and firemen agreed to help, too. Everyone worked fast.
No time to turn round. I'll run tender first. Come on.
But before they could clear the station, they were stopped. "Aha!" called a foreman. "A Great Western engine and a brake van, too. You can't take these."
"Aye, but they're all for us,"
said Douglas's driver.
"See for yourself."
The foreman looked all over Oliver. "Seems in order. Right away, guard."
That was a near thing. "We've had worse,"
replied Oliver, and they forged ahead. It was daylight when their journey ended.
"We're home!"
cried Douglas. "Shh," said his driver. "There are the works. We'll find a place for Oliver." Oliver said goodbye and thank you, and Douglas puffed away. The next day, Douglas told the other engines all about Oliver.
"Sir Topham Hatt will have to know,"
said James.
"Douglas should tell him at once,"
added Gordon.
"Well, here he is,"
said a voice.
"Now, what's this all about?"
"Beg pardon, sir, but we do need another engine."
"Yes, sir," ventured Gordon. "A steam engine, sir." "Well, unless one is saved from scrap, there's little hope." "But, sir, one has."
"Yes, indeed. And thanks to you, Douglas, he is now at our works. Oliver is just what we need for Duck's branch line." Everyone cheered. Now Oliver and Toad are mended and painted in full Great Western colors. Duck and Oliver are happy on their branch line. The others laughed at first and called it the Little Western. Duck and Oliver were delighted, and so the Little Western it will always be. On a clear day when the sky is blue and there's just enough breeze to blow the clouds away, you can stand on the big hill above the valley and watch Duck and Oliver far below, busily at work on Duck's branch line near the sea. The two engines are very proud of their matching coats of gleaming color. Oliver often talks about the time that Douglas saved him from scrap.
"If it wasn't for his help,"
Oliver will say,
"I might have been caught when I ran away from the scrapyard, and I would never have come to live here on Sir Topham Hatt's railway."
The other engines all wanted to know about Oliver's adventures.
"Amazing," remarked Henry.
"Oliver," said James, "has resource."
"And sagacity," put in Gordon.
"What does that mean?" whispered Percy. "I think," replied Thomas, "it's about being clever and wise."
"He is," finished Gordon, "an example to us all."
I'm sorry to say that Oliver became very puffed up in the smoke box.
"Henry says I'm amazing. He's right,"
he whistled as he swooshed along the line. One day, Sir Topham Hatt came to see him.
"You are doing well. Now you must learn how to look after freight cars."
Every wise engine knows that you cannot trust freight cars. The other engines warned Oliver, but he took no notice.
"You think I can't manage," he said huffily. "Gordon knows better. He says I'm sagacious."
You may be good gracious or whatever you call it, but cars can be troublesome, and...
Say no more, Duck,
interrupted Donald.
It's a pity, but the wee engine'll just have to learn for himself.
Oliver pulled some loaded cars to a siding and pushed the empties to the chute. Then he came back to take the loaded cars away. But they were comfortable and didn't want to move.
What right has he to poke his funnel in here? We want Duck.
Or Donald.
Or Douglas. Look sharp,
Puffed Oliver.
That's not the way to speak, hissed the cars. We'll get even.
Oliver heard nothing. The cars moved smoothly at first, then suddenly Oliver felt them push forward. His driver applied the brakes, but they were useless against the surging cars. On, yelled the cars. Oliver fought hard, but still they forced him on and on. At last, the cars grew tired.
I'm winning,
Gasped Oliver, but it was too late. Oliver lay bruised and bemused, bunker down in the turntable well. Duck surveyed the damage.
Hello, Oliver. Are you being a good gracious engine? Beg pardon, but we really don't like this sort of surprise. Donald and Douglas will miss their turntable until it is mended.
That evening, Oliver was hauled gently to safety.
I'm sorry, sir,
he said to Sir Topham Hatt.
I should have listened to Duck's advice. I don't feel good gracious or whatever it is. I just feel silly.
Well, Oliver, replied Sir Topham Hatt,
now you know the damage cars can do. Yes, I do, sir. I look like a load of scrap iron. Oh, I don't think so,
laughed Sir Topham Hatt.
But you do need to go to the works to be mended.
The other engines now felt sorry for Oliver.
The branch line won't be the same without you, whistled Duck. Come back soon.
A few days later, Oliver did come back. His coat gleamed brighter than ever. He was a wiser engine, too, and never made a mistake about cars again. Percy and Duck like working at the harbor by the sea. On a clear summer's night, there's no better place to be. The big ships bring passengers. Cargo ships carry machinery and other things. Duck and Percy puff backwards and forwards with the crates of cargo as they are loaded and unloaded by the quayside. One morning, Duck and Percy noticed that the horizon was packed with sails flapping against the blue sky. I wish I could sail to faraway lands, sighed Duck.
Engines can't go sailing, snorted Percy, because engines can't float.
Duck still had his dreams. Suddenly, they were rudely interrupted. Wakey, wakey, hovered Harold. I'm looking at the boats, replied Duck. That's the regatta. Lots of boats, lots of races, great fun. I hover around in case I'm needed. Do you go to the horizon? Asked Duck. Yes, and beyond. I didn't know there was a beyond, whispered Percy. Do you go to other places at sea? Continued Duck. Certainly. I can land on ships, you know. Anywhere, anytime. Goodbye. Duck sighed.
He went on talking about the regatta all day. Percy lost patience. Well, Duck, I'd rather have my wheels on solid ground. Our rails can take us to all the places we could ever wish to see. That's an emergency, called Duck's driver. I'll check with the harbor master. He returned with bad news. A man taking part in the regatta has hurt his hand. We're to take him to the hospital at the next station. Harold's bringing him now. Come on. Good to see you again, Duck, whirred Harold as he landed carefully on the platform. The man was gently helped to safety. My job is to stay at sea in case of other emergencies. Otherwise, I would take this gentleman to hospital myself. Must fly. Goodbye. Duck set off on his journey. Soon he was steaming well, and his wheels were thundering along the track. When they reached the station, the man thanked everyone, and Bertie got ready to take him to the hospital. You look splendid flying along the line, Duck, glowed Bertie. No wonder they call you Great Western. Thank you, Bertie. Percy's right, he thought to himself. Engines are happiest when their wheels are firmly on the rails. That night, Percy and Duck stayed a little longer at the quay. The air was warm and the sea calm. There's a shooting star, said Duck. Don't be daft, laughed Percy. It's Harold. Look, he's hovering overhead. Something fluttered down towards Duck. His driver caught it. It's a flag from the regatta. Harold's giving it to you as a present, Duck. That was kind of Harold, whispered Duck. He may have whirly arms instead of wheels, but he seems to understand just what an engine needs. Duck still wonders about the lands beyond the horizon, but I think he knows that sometimes the best travels are those we can only dream about. Don't you?